Welcome back to another episode of Scary Sundays. And today I want to talk about the patterns that we all may find ourselves in in life of repeatedly going back to bad habits or ways of escaping our lives that we know don't serve us, but we may find ourselves going back to them. And we may find ourselves going back to them after a period of abstaining from those patterns for quite some time, whether we're using willpower or discipline. Um, Maybe we found ourselves with the ability to really shake off a bad habit, but then something happens in our life. Maybe there's a stressor that we weren't expecting, and we find ourselves going back to the same old habits and patterns. And what I've identified for in myself in terms of when this happens is that it typically comes back to a desire for freedom and a desire for freedom specifically from my own responsibilities in life. And the deepest root responsibility underneath all of the other ones is just the responsibility to be here now, the responsibility to be present, the responsibility to be aware and in the moment. Because ultimately, I think that what we're trying to escape when we go to, you know, bad habits or unhealthy addictions, whether there's a million of them, uh, what we're trying to escape really is the present moment. What we're really feeling at a deep subconscious level is a lack of acceptance, a lack of okayness with the present moment. And I know for me, the way that this manifests itself is a feeling of being burdened by needing to be present in a situation that is not naturally engaging me. And I find that typically when I start feeling like giving my presence to a situation is burdensome or effortful or has friction involved, that's when I start to look to, you know, things that are a distraction from the moment so that I can allow my mind to completely collapse, basically. Like I can allow myself to completely let go of the plot of what's happening in the here and now and basically just dissociate. And that's definitely been my personal pattern my entire life is this pattern of just like zoning out and dissociating and literally like not having my attention be on the present moment because it's often felt like a burden. And this is a really important thing to talk about because I think a lot of us go through this, whether we're aware of it or not. There is a certain level of um, tension that we may feel in needing to be quote unquote on our game or needing to be present or needing to pay attention to what's happening. And if we, at whatever level, believe that that is a chore or something that requires effort or something that is beyond our natural state, then there's always going to be a part of us that wants to escape that burden of paying attention and being here now. And that's going to cause us to look to all sorts of things, whether it's alcohol or drugs or work or sex or intimacy or friends, not being able to be alone. There's like a million different ways that we distract ourselves from the actual experience of being here and now, because oftentimes that experience is not necessarily something that our ego prefers. Because if you truly are loyal to being here and now your whole life, then you can guarantee that at certain points in your life, that's going to mean dealing with unpleasant sensations because everything's always changing. So if you're really present, you're going to just feel everything. You're going to feel the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think um, that for a lot of us, there's this feeling like it takes a lot of energy and focus to give our presence to the moment. And so then when it's time for the weekend, for example, or it's time for, um, the day's over and you just plop down on the couch and turn on Netflix, you just there's this strong desire to just like turn off your brain. And I think this is why people get addicted to Instagram too. It's like the numbness that we feel of scrolling. Like if any of us really investigate it, we can see that it's ultimately like super unsatisfying and not fulfilling. But there's a certain numbness that gets that we actually kind of crave because it allows us to disconnect from the present moment. And that then begs the question, why would we want to disconnect from the present moment, right? Because every like spiritual book that you'll ever read and every self-help book that you'll ever read will tell you that, happiness is only found in the present moment and you just got to be in the present moment, and that's the key to joy and peace. And I do believe that, but the question then is, if all you have to do is be in the present moment, why do we want to run away from it so often? And part of it has to do with what I was saying earlier about, if you truly are committed to the present moment, then you're committed to something bigger than your preferences of life, because the present moment is going to bring with it all different types of experiences. So that's part of it. But I think the deeper thing that I want to talk about today is the messages that we may have received um, growing up, or when we were at an impressionable age, um, and then believed wrongly that maybe the present moment is not a safe place to be. Or maybe the present moment is a place in which we don't actually feel connected to it naturally. So we feel like we need to force ourselves to pay attention to it. And this is why so many people often will say that they suck at meditation, or they can't meditate, or they can't get their mind to stop. And I think that's a fundamental um, misinterpretation of what meditation is. It's not a thing that you do. I mean, there is an aspect of concentration that's a skill that gets developed over time. But ultimately, meditation is relaxing into the awareness that pervades everything and all of us. And once you start to get a taste of this feeling of awareness that is actually always paying attention, and it's more of like a plugging into it rather than oh, now I have to be aware. And I think making this shift is really, really fundamental in terms of the implications that it has for letting go of really deep seated bad habits or ways that we escape. And for anyone listening, yourself, like, the ways that you escape, whether it's through your phone or whatever it might be, or through your work, or through addictions. And so to really go deep within and inquire, what is it about the present moment for me that I feel like I need to escape? And that can be a really important and beautiful and challenging and triggering question to ask yourself. But I think it's really, really important to be able to start to get a felt sense experience of what is the feeling that comes up inside of me when I want to escape from the present moment, and I want to um, release the responsibility and the burden of using my mind. And I just want to like veg out, like I just want to turn off my mind. Like this is literally why people do drugs. Um, or I want to like turn off my mind by getting into my body and dancing. Like there's healthier ways of doing it as well. But I think what we want to start investigating is, why is our fundamental relationship with our mind such that we ever feel burdened by it? And the simple answer to this, in my opinion, is an over identification and an addiction to our own thought, right? Because if we're constantly processing through our mind about how to best meet the present moment, it's exhausting and it's going to get burned out. And then the pendulum's going to swing in the other direction, and we're going to want to just completely shut our mind off. So then the question becomes, what is a more sustainable, balanced way to relate to the present moment where we don't feel like we're overusing our minds to the point where we want to turn them off, and where we also can start to rewrite any stories that we may have believed in our past about the present moment not being a safe place to be, or about the present moment being this thing that's alien to us that we need to engage with rather than something that we're inextricably a part of. And I mean, the answer to that, to how to do that, I think is found in, you know, countless different spiritual traditions and modalities and therapy. And so I'm not going to go off and recommend all the different things because different people are different, and different things work for different people. But one thing that I want to give you guys that I always try to come back to when I notice myself getting burned out on being present, let's call it, which typically, just to recap, happens because I'm over overusing my mind to apprehend the present moment, or believing a faulty story that it actually is. It takes effort to be present, which all you have to do is look at a kid to realize that it actually takes effort to not be present, and being present is actually effortless. But we forget that as we grow up. So what I try to do is literally physically bring my awareness down into my chest and into my heart, and start to actually operate and perceive the world from a place, from a heart-centered place. And it may sound a little woo-woo to people that like aren't into this stuff, although I mean, if you're watching this video, you probably are, because you're you follow me, um, you feel me. But it actually is a physical move that you can make. It's actually very practical. So when you start feeling that sense of like, oh my God, like I'm just like exhausted, I need to like shut off my brain somehow, before reaching for the thing that you may, regret doing later because it's a habit you're trying to kick. See if you can literally close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and bring your awareness into your chest, into your heart space, into your heart center, and start to actually engage with the feeling, that urgent feeling of wanting to escape the moment, from this place of heart centeredness, from within, deep within your chest. And you may find that as you become more sensitive and relax into that place, the urgency starts being met with a lot of compassion for yourself, a lot of compassion for the part of yourself that wants to escape the present moment. And that compassion brings you into the present moment with yourself. And then you can maybe start to taste how being present is actually the most natural, effortless thing in the world. Paying attention when we're forcing ourselves to do it with our mind because we think we need to, on something that we're actually not interested in, uh, can get exhausting and can burn us out. But paying attention with our heart to the present moment, to what life is presenting to us in the moment, is truly an effortless task. And again, all you have to do is look at a baby or even a dog. That's a weaker comparison because, we're not dogs. We have self awareness in a way that they don't. But the point is, you can even just look at your own experience. You can just reflect on a time in your life when you were so engaged in the moment and it didn't feel like a strain. It didn't feel like a burden. You didn't leave that experience feeling burned out. You probably left it feeling more energized and more present. And I would venture to say that if you really look back on those experiences and ask yourself what they had in common, I would venture to say that there was a strong emotional component which happens from bringing your awareness into your chest. Of course, it can happen if the experience is just a peak experience, but what we're trying to do here is learn how to live from that place, regardless of what's happening outside of us, so that showing up for life in a present way no longer feels like a burden that we need to escape with bad habits. So that's a Scary Sunday for today. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this topic, what you guys think, if you agree or disagree. And until next time, guys, peace.